Srini to kind of start with the proceedings. Srini, all yours.
Hey, thank you, Divakar. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Zalpmox's earning call for Q1 FY22. I hope you and your family are doing well and staying safe at home. The key highlights I would like to bring to your attention is the Newport Asia's investment in Zalpmox. I would like to thank Newport Asia for having faith in Zalpmox's mission to become an international tech evangelist. With Newport's global network and resource, we will invest in augmentation of our senior management team and overseas business expansion. We remain focused on our stated outcome to deliver market outcomes. The other good news is to share is the board of directors has appointed Mr. Srinivas Kollapari as the group president Startup Ventures. Mr. Srinivas Kollapara, with 30 years of international experience, was the founder for Hyderabad-based T-Hub, India's best-known startup engine. T-Hub also used to run a corporate innovation division, serving leading MNC clients. We welcome him as a part of a senior management team. Moving on to financial highlights, I'm pleased to inform that we have maintained our business momentum while focusing on sustainable operations. We continue to move ahead with our execution plan, which is centered on identifying targets in sectors that correspond with our HEAL approach. Our operating revenues for the quarter was 32.5 million as compared to 35.4 million in Q4 FY21 and 35.1 million in Q1 FY21. Operating EBITDA adjusted for ESOP for the quarter was 5.3 million as compared to 5.5 million in Q4 FY21 and rupees 14.1 million in Q1 FY21. Adjusted EBITDA margin was 16.3% as compared to 40.1% in Q1 FY21. As we had mentioned in our previous calls, due to the lockdown, we had substantial fixed cost non-occurrence, which had resulted in abnormal high EBITDA margins in the past few quarters and is now gradually coming back to the expected mean. The net profit for the quarter was negative 15.3 million due to 22.9 million ESOP expenditure as compared to loss of 1.5 million in Q4 FY21 and a profit of 16.7 million in Q1 FY21. We expect to build on this performance in the current fiscal. Our team size is 86, including employees, interns, consultants, as compared to 99 in Q1 FY21. And mainly the reduction is in the number of interns. Till date, we have served 48 clients, and our sustained interaction with our clients is foundation for good performance. The fair value of our investment in portfolio companies stood at approximately 480.4 million as on 30th June 2021, as compared to 347.3 million as on 30th June 2020. Our portfolio companies did well by embracing new opportunities. Fortigo experienced a mild slowdown in April and May 2021 on account of the second wave. However, in June, witnessed a near complete recovery to March 21 levels, with the exception of Kerala and Northwest, which continue to be impacted. July and August have seen some good consumer demand, manufacturing resilience, and the normalization of the metal and mineral industry across India. The strong rebound and Fortigo's focus on the growth trajectory is expected to move it closer to a break-even by mid-FY 2022. The other portfolio company, MeHub has released the next generation of its interaction analytic products, VIA. This issued to more user-friendly dashboard, sleek design, and more robust technology at the back end. This will enable automation of quality control and auditing of 100% customer service interaction. Currently, it is rolled out in around 6,000 vehicles per month for the Tata Nexon and Ultrason models. The VIA has also started servicing clients in several other sectors, including payments and online marketplaces. Woovly is on track to become India's most trusted social commerce platform. Every month, its 5 million plus users generate more than 150 million views on content development by 18,000 homegrown influencers. Woovly currently has more than 110 brands and 7,000 SKUs active on its platform, leading to an ARR of $1.5 million. Its revenue is increasing at the rate of 34% on month-on-month basis. 70% of its users hail from Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities, come to Woovly to explore like brands, maybe goods, or associated user reviews. Its buyers reside in over 4,250 postal codes across India and spend on an average of $10 per order. Woovly had a pre-series closure recently and is currently focusing on launching an online video commerce option. Among the other portfolio company, the Star in Me, a global career advancement platform for women professionals, has garnered 7,000 plus members from 69 countries till date. These users are availing coaches from 90 plus leading experts in across 10 countries. It has also tied up with 20 MNC clients in IT, pharma, BFSI, and consumer sectors as a facilitator for their employee learning. It has won startup awards from HYSEA, SCSE, and SHIPO in association with US Department of State and Kerala Startup Mission. It has booked a revenue of 60 lakhs till date and is focused on onboarding 40 B2B clients and 20,000 B2C members. TSM has recently raised funds from ISB and the Department of Science and Technologies and from one of the US-based investors. The board has also approved acquisition of 64% in Singapore-based GoFX Platforms Technologies. GoFX is into development of e-commerce application in the health sector and will enable global market approach, reach, and growth for Zalpmoc. I would like to share that we had our first exit in August 2021 in Ideal Insurance Brokers. The cost of acquisition was 2.35 lakhs, and we have sold our stake for 50 lakh, resulting in a profit of 47.65 lakhs. Now, let me come to the outlook for the remaining fiscal year of 2022. We see a promising growth in our portfolio companies, given that they are concentrating on hitherto unaddressed areas of the economy. We expect our key investments, including Fortigo Networks Logistics, Mihook, Woovly, to expand and enter the next generation of growth. We continue to maintain our cautiously optimistic outlook given the current challenging times, limiting the opportunity to onboard clients. With this, now I request Diwakar to open the floor for question and answers.
Thank you, Srini, for those opening remarks. We will now open it up for the Q&A. I just have a small request for people that have logged in and your names. Please have a proper name up there if I have to call you up for questions. Should there be a need for you to ask questions, because some of them I don't even see a name, so I won't be able to call them out. So the first question comes from the line of Kishan Tosniwal. Kishan, I've unmuted your line. You can go ahead. Kishan, you need to unmute yourself and then speak. Kishan, can you hear us? You can go ahead. We don't have any, response from Kishan. I'm going to move to the next person. It comes from the line of Rudresh Kalyani. Rudresh, I've unmuted you. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hi,
Rudresh. Yeah.
Hi, team. I have got a few questions. So I will start with a couple of them. For how many quarters are we going to capitalize this ESOP expense, and in what range? That is my first question. And the second question will be, our revenue has been stuck around for 3 crore since somewhere around six odd quarters. So when can we expect an uptick in that? And the third question is, what was the reason behind selling the stake in the Ideal Insurance?
So you want to take the ESOP and the other things?
Yes. So basically, in case if you look at ESOP we had two pools. One is ESOP scheme 2019, other one is ESOP scheme 2020. Now, under ESOP scheme 2019, we had close to about 8,21,369 options, which have been approved by the shareholders, out of which we have given about 5,15,743 shares, options to the employees. So majority of these options or grants are going to be exercised over the period of next 2 years. Please understand that these are the employees who are associated with the company and at a very senior level. And the compensation package at Zalpmoc is like higher on the ESOP side and lesser on the cash, so that they have a longer term with the company. Now, yeah, I hope that answers as far as the ESOP is concerned.
Yeah, coming back to your two other questions as to, I think the two questions were basically that why did we exit Ideal Insurance? And the second one was that when will our revenues be unstuck? So the first part of it, Ideal Insurance, we have not been playing an active role for quite some time. And the pathway they are taking, while it has a lot of promise and all, we do feel that there is something more that we can do in the insurance sector in a different dimension. They have their own business model, which is there. And when we had interacted with them and built the first level version, it was relevant. But in today's time and place, probably something new could be done. As you know, that we interact with one entrepreneur in one problem area. So to give us some space for some furtherance in insurance space in a future date, we've thought it was the right time for us to exit this part. And anyway, it was an insignificant stake we were holding. We were holding about 1% to it. About the revenue getting unstuck, I think we had clearly said that we are looking at a revenue growth only from next financial year, first quarter. And we are sticking to it. At this point of time, we are consolidating, making sure that our overseas market exposure, the business setups there, the kind of focus that we want to give on startups to find our next level of winners. Those are the key components where our time is going. And by the time we consolidate and get ready for the overseas market, only then we will start seriously looking at revenue increase. So I don't think you can expect any revenue increase or revenue will be in this range till next year, first quarter. I think that's something we have always consistently said. It is not changing.
Okay, thank you. I will come back in the queue for the later questions.
Thanks, Rudresh. We'll try Kishan again. Kishan, I've unmuted you. Kishan, we can't hear you, please.
Kishan, can you hear us?
We'll take the next question to the line of Jagdish. Jagdish, I've unmuted you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, we have invested our technology support, or I don't know about the financial support in the Tata Click, where I think I have seen the use case where we improved the Tata Click performance based on the design or something. How the collaboration and how are we planning to get new customers in that area?
Tata Click was a pure services project, and there was no other participation from us other than technological inputs. And it was a one-off project wherein we built it for them and we handed over and came out. These are projects that we have done so that the experience factor for us to know that we can work for large logos, kind of building up a portfolio, all these things are important. And from time to time, it's not just Tata Click. We have worked for several corporates to find out what is our niche and where do we expect the maximum kind of windfall or the maximum kind of margins to come in from when we are doing a pure services project. And as you know that I have said in the last few con calls that we do feel strongly that it is better to put our services focus for marketing and sales in the overseas market than in the Indian market, because margins arguably are much, much more lucrative. And if we are doing it for margins, then might as well do it for the highest margin. That said, as and when challenging assignments come up from good logos, which sort of help us establish ourselves as a serious player or a player with serious reputation or skill, we would participate in it. And it's not just Tata Click. We have worked, I think it's disclosed, we have worked for Britannia also. We have worked for some marquee names, and we are in the process of working with some more, which we cannot disclose immediately. But that's where the services part will rest. But you will see a sea change once we go overseas. Then we will be purely focusing on getting a funnel of pure services revenue, which will be different.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Jagdish.
Anyone else that has a question may press the raise hand button.
I don't see any raised hand.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for them. So
okay.
Anyone else that has a question, you can please press the raise hand button. We have the question on the line of Abhishek Agarwal. Abhishek, I've unmuted your line. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, sir. I just wanted a brief overview on the startup ecosystem that you're seeing currently in India as well as abroad.
Startup ecosystems are, see, the thing is, it's quite simple. If you look at it from a very top level, we are close to a $3 trillion economy. And somewhere or the other, technology will enable at least, let's say, 10% of the GDP. And if you assume that 40% of that business of let's say 300 billion would get done from startups because of the innovation cycle, it's a large market, which will lead to large capitalization. So overall, startups do have a key thing because somewhere we had a kind of a logjam innovation and suddenly it is coming to fore. Now, that said, our perspective and our knowledge, we have limited into what we call as the heel sector and allied sectors. And we do think that that sector possibly will have a kind of a higher rate of return from a worldwide perspective. So if you look at it from a startup focus, we probably would be more interested in startups out of Southeast Asia, Africa, and India than, let's say, startups out of Europe or US or any of the non-third world countries from an overall perspective. Unless those startups are pure tech startups, where our chance of participation and all, unless it's in data science, looks remote to us, because a high-tech startup does not really need to engage with us in any form. Now, from the overseas aspect of it, which we are trying to get into, and that's the reason you see our interest in the UK office, as well as in, let's say, the GoFX acquisition that we are doing in Singapore. This is mainly to make sure that we are attached to those sort of ecosystems where our kind of startups in the hill sector is deployable. Now, you must realize that in India, when we started as promoters, we had a reputation, we had knowledge of the entrepreneurial ecosystem about who we are, and hence some faith. Unlike India, in UK or in any other country, our reputation is not that well understood or found to be relevant. So till we build a portfolio through services in UK and all, I don't think we will get the hang or the handle of good entrepreneurs there. So we will wait our turn. But overall, anything which is focused as mass markets, anything which is focused at soft sciences, anything which is focused as human man-machine interface, I think these are the three areas where we feel startups would do very good in the next 10-15 years.
Okay, sir. Sir, one more question, if I can. In the startup, I mean, since we have opened our subsidiaries now in UK as well as Singapore, so any new capabilities or any new opportunities that we are very excited of or we see on the horizon?
See, the thing is, the Singapore ecosystem is much more focused on, let's say, the African markets or Latin American markets, or even in some parts of, things like health or education, where there's a focus on the whole ecosystem, a lot of government support. So we do think that it'll open up doors for us. And the key aspect is always people. We think that our partner in there are a set of people who actually are pretty reputed, and that will again hopefully help us to open up doors in those ecosystems.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you. I think there are some questions in the chat window.
I'll just go with it, Sandeepan.
Okay.
Easier for you. So since Kishan has been trying, a bit and he couldn't go through, so I'm just going to ask his question first.
Sure.
Last year we were making profits, but again we have started losses. Is it because only of ESOP booking or anything else? That's the first question. Srini, you want to go with that?
Yeah. So basically, yes, as you rightly pointed out, it is purely on account of ESOP booking. Else, in case if you look at it, the top line was about 3.25 crores and overall total income was about 3.5 crores. Adjusted EBITDA was about 53 lakhs of profit. Okay. Compared to Q4 previous year, it's about 55 lakhs. And in fact, the EBITDA margins, adjusted EBITDA margins have improved when you compare Q4 versus Q1. In Q4, it was 15.4%. In Q1, it is 16.3%. In case if I can exclude the ESOP. I hope that answers this question.
Fantastic. The next one is on, we have done a...
I would like to add a little bit more. Apart from this, we also have invested a huge amount of time and effort in identifying startups, which hopefully you will get to know in the next quarter or two. So there's a lot of work that happens before it comes to the fore. And, even prospecting and finding winners, interacting with the thing, it's a very heavy process on our end. And we have been heavily interacting with a lot of startups. Hopefully you will see some of those tractions visible in the next 2 quarters. So that's also a huge part of effort. We have not taken that manpower and tried to get more services project to buffer up or lift up the revenue level. So that's also a strategic call we have taken.
Yeah, the second one from Kishan reads, we have done a private placement in Newport. Is there any specific reason or we wanted to raise funds at a good price? What is the rationale behind the private placement in Newport? I think that's the question, sir.
So we wanted to make sure that we are able to do our strategic execution of management augmentation plus the overseas expansion in a sensible way with no other impedance coming in the way. And for that, the funds were important. I think we have grown at a rate slightly faster than what we had calculated. And we think that right now, the entrepreneurs, or as you call in the stock market term, the promoters, could be the biggest bottleneck that was going to happen if we could not expand on our philosophy at the right time. We thought that the timing was becoming hot and it was a time for us to harvest our opportunities coming our way, because I think our model has clicked and the faster we expand onto it is there. So getting intelligent people, smarter people than us onto the management, getting better people than us to augment us for the next level was paramount. And for that, we wanted to make sure that we have the right kind of reserves and the kind of funding that we need, irrespective of whatever else happens onto that. But we didn't want to put pressure onto liquidating our assets just to make sure that we are able to fund it to keep our strategic vision alive. That's the first thing. That's the main reason for raising the funding.
Thanks, Sandeepan, for that. I would prefer if people can raise their hand rather than putting it in the chat board. Makes it easier for everyone. The next question comes from the line of Gaurav Joshi. Gaurav, I unmuted you. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Sandeep, and nice to interact here. So just in terms of the capital allocation, in terms of the new money which you have raised, and also in terms of the sectoral allocation, how much do you think will be going for the service line, and how much do you foresee going for the startups and investing in the startups? And also in terms of the startups, which sector, is there any sectoral allocation which you're making, whether how much is for tech, how much is for tech, which all sectors you are more inclined to, and what is your average maturity holding period in such startups?
So I will try to answer this thing. First of all, we have not raised this fund to fund any startups. That part of the model has not changed, and I don't think we're going to change it in the short term, at least for a year or so more. The fund has been raised to augment management, to increase and get a better team, and to make sure that we are able to bootstrap and start our overseas operations. The overseas operations, as you rightly said, are geared towards getting more services business, but they need a gestation period and a kind of a sedimentation time. If you connect the things we are saying, we have said that we hope to get some traction in the services, and the service revenues will grow from next financial year, first quarter. This is the build up to that, for which we need to make sure that we're augmenting it properly. And generally, to make sure our business grows and probably grows at a more sensible level, to answer some of those questions. When do we exit? What's the right time to exit? What's the best new startup? I think we need to augment the management bandwidth, which we will be doing aggressively. And some part of the fund is for that part. The funds are not going to be deployed for unless there are always exceptions. But the purpose of raising the fund is not to deploy it into a particular sector or for any startup. So.
Thank you.
That's it, Gaurav. Can I move on?
No, I'll go in the queue, Thanks.
Yeah, sure. The next question is from the line of Sandeep Das. Sandeep, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the questions was already asked regarding the Newport Asia. So another question would be like, in the current revenue, what is the breakup of the revenues coming from the product and revenues coming from the services?
Srini?
As of now, most of the revenues are, to that matter, even 100% revenues are coming from the services only. Products, what we do is we inbuilt into it. Like these are the components which are being developed before shipping up the final product. So those are being used to render the services.
Okay. So also, can you just give a brief elaboration on what is the strategy for the next 3 to 5 years in the product lines and the service lines, and as far as the startups are concerned?
3 to 5 years is quite a long time. Honestly, it's not in our full capability to project for that long, to be very frank, very accurately. But broadly, we will stick to our core competencies. The products that will come out will essentially be around leveraging our expertise in data science, statistics, mathematics, and our understanding of design and part. In a 3 to 5 year time frame, we do, as you can see, that one pattern, I don't know if you people have noticed, is our equity or stakes in the startups are growing significantly from our first few parts, right? And mostly we are getting into a higher level of equity participation in the startups because we are playing a longer and bigger role. In probably 3 to 5 years, you will see Zelp having some startups where we may hold above 75% of. Notionally, that means that we are kind of like the majority, and there are no other big participants, and those are going to be our bread. That's the kind of product venture mix that we think will be where Zelp will be 3 to 5 years from now. Hope that answers your question.
Got it.
Thank you, Sandeep. I'll take the next question from the line of Swapnajit Ray. Swapnajit, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for answering all these questions. So my question is that currently, like we have like Fotico, Mihoop, Uvi, so those are doing fairly well. So is there any plan to increase stakes in those, or will keep holding how much you are holding it and we'll just monitor how it is going? That's the first question. And the second question is, we got the notification that we have acquired close to 64% on GeoFX. So just want to know like what it does, and is it like completely new startup or it has some background of some years? So these two questions would be handy. Yeah.
Okay. I'll answer the first question, which is basically as to are we going to at least preserve our stake in these startups? I think the answer is very simple. We'll cut our coat according to our cloth. And right now, I don't think our cloth warrants us. And the valuations have gone to that we can hold on to even if we want to. At the moment of time, we don't want to make sure that we are confusing our priorities as to where our investment needs to go into. Hopefully, we'll find a solution for it in a 1 to 2 year time frame. But as of now, there are no plans. That said, if opportunities come up, if we find a mechanism which is favorable and works to our benefit, we may, from some strategic point of view. About GoFX, it's actually kind of a JV, you may say, which is instrumentalized as a kind of an acquisition. If you look at the value we are paying, it's almost at the face value level. The reason is we think that to reach out to the overseas market, it is better to go with a focused set of experts who are doing that only. And we want to make sure that it is not somewhere where burning a lot of money in trying to investigate. They have equal skin in the game. And that obviously will make a more cost-efficient structure for us to acquire new businesses in overseas territories for the sectors that we are predominantly in. So it's more of a efficiency structure that way. It's a new startup. It doesn't have much history. The people have a lot of history. And that's what got us interested to set up something of this nature with them.
Yeah, thank you for the answer. And the last question, if I may. So, suppose currently what happening, we are primarily providing services to the startup and we are getting the request take out of it. But is that the plan going forward as well, or it might be scenario where we need to infuse cash as well if needed to some startup? Just trying to myself clear.
All these options are open. Maybe we'll come up with a new model. Maybe we will go on with a new change of how the venture world should be. All things are on table. But coming to your pertinent question as to where we see the focus is that we will play to our strengths and what is our capability, not spread ourselves too thin, and try to build on whatever is market acceptable or believable in terms of what we can deliver and try to maximize that. But our core focus is to make sure we are catalyzing innovation across all the spectrum. And for that, whatever we think is the right tool, it may be fundraising for our startups, it may be coming with a new model of doing some sort of a stock swap. We are open to those things as long as it makes sense for us and our shareholders.
Yeah, thank you. All the best.
Thank you, Swapnajit. I think that also answers the question of Vardhaman Gandhi and Anand Shah, who had wanted to know more on the GeoFX acquisition and the rationale behind it. I think Sandeep did answer that. I'll take the next question on the line of Yashish Ajmera. Yashish, your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, Yashish. Please go ahead.
So I have a kind of a philosophical question. So
I love those.
Thank you. So let's say if I own certain shares of Zeltmock, what am I actually owning? So that is my question.
I think you had interacted with me on LinkedIn, correct?
Yes, yes, I did.
Correct. I do have a sort of memory on recall kind of a thing. Yes, I think that does take care of a little bit of a philosophical answer. What you firstly own is a focus onto a sector which is underserved as of now. And what you own is a kind of ownership into solutions which are focused for the next 500 million Indians, hopefully translating to the next 5 billion world citizens. That is one thing that you are surely owning. What you essentially own is something akin to, I would not say a standard mutual fund, but more of a leveraged mutual fund where the instrument that you're investing in, which is Zeltmock, is trying to get a delivery assurance and success ratio higher by making sure access to technology for these sectors, which are usually starved of technology, is given at par with world standards. I think that's the concept and you're owning. And if we do it properly, then the spoils of the war from those sectors, the wealth from the bottom of the pyramid is what we stand to capitalize. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Yashish. I'll take the next question on the line of Vidul Sikka. Vidul, I've unmuted you. Please go ahead.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Vidul. Please go ahead.
It's an honor to be talking to you, Sandeep sir. Okay, so here's my question. In the last con call, there were 4 different views which were put around how Zeltmock plans to play the edtech sector. One being through the formal education, then one being through competitive exams. So I just wanted to understand what are the updates there. Are we still sticking to the view and what's happening in the... there were a few companies which Zeltmock had acquired. What's happening on that end as
well? So I'll just refresh the segments again. And I think broadly we had talked of 3 segments. One is what we call the need to learn, which is the formal education sector. Then there's a need to succeed sector, which is a competitive exams and such like. And then there is a need to know sector, for which we had also told about the acquisition and a kind of a process we are doing through a subsidiary called Signal. We are working very hard on all these aspects. And incidentally, for need to succeed, you have seen a strategic stake we have taken in a company called GEPL, which works on something called Sarkari Pariksha, helping people prepare for government exams and all. And this was, I think, done 2 quarters back, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe a quarter back. So we are on track on those parts. But again, these are slightly things we have started last year, probably 4 to 7 months there. So you will hear some news on our starting, hopefully in the next 2-3 months on the need to know front, and some maturity levels and some performance factors coming in, probably in another 5-6 months for the education sector and the need to succeed sector.
That answered my questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vidul. I'll take the next question from the line of Dhwanil Desai. Dhwanil, go ahead.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Hi, guys. So I'm new to the business model and company. So pardon my ignorance if I ask some stupid questions. First question, Mr. Sandeepan, is that in this tech for equity segment, typical ticket size that we have been deploying is less than 1 CR. So is this the norm, or do you think that was more of a limitation from where we started and it has a potential to go up?
I couldn't hear your question fully properly. There was some sort of a static coming, but I think I got the gist of it. So first of all, we are not tech for equity exactly. We are tech for cost plus equity. That's the first thing that I want to correct, which means that we are not making money unless the company does well. So we have skin in the game, and the value we are bringing in terms of delivery assurance, execution, architecture, kind of building for the last, that is what we are booking in the equity that we take from the company. So as such, there are limitations which come because of ethical and of course practical issues. Like if you're working with a particular entrepreneur in a sector, it is immoral as well as strategically wrong to work with another entrepreneur in the same sector. So the standard services model of I'm experienced in making banking interfaces for hundreds of banks, and every other bank I do, my cost comes down, that doesn't apply to us. But what we gain instead is the fact that we own equity in all these companies, and hence the chance of success of any one of them. And if even 1 in 5 strikes it big, we are more or less compensated for from that perspective. And no matter how well you do the other model, you will probably get 50%, 60% margins. Whereas here, we are talking of 5x, 6x return in terms of margins coming in. So that does sound lucrative, even with the kind of a thing that of some failure inevitable.
Okay, got it. Can I ask one more question?
I think you are entitled to 2 questions. So yes.
Yeah. Okay. So second question is, in all the investment that we have done, because of the limitation of resources, we kind of keep on getting diluted, even though the ventures scale up. So do you guys have, kind of any understanding that when the inflection point will come where we have to at least not mandatorily dilute and can hang on to our stake? Is it like, after you raise resources from the first sale of your investment, any such milestone or inflection point that you can think of?
I think that is not possible to keep ours intact and be fair to the entrepreneurs. Okay. We come in at the co-founder level, and remember that we are getting diluted at par with the co-founders. It will be unfair of us to sort of flex our muscles and have a favorable clause in our favor, where making the entrepreneurs suffer double. That is something I don't think we will do. Coming to whether we should want to sort of play a role in choosing the startups and deploying more money so that we don't get diluted ad infinitum, surely we want to do that, but for our top shots. And I think we are 6-year vintage, about to be 6 years, not even 6 yet. Our best startups are a model vintage of 3 to 4 years. I don't think we would rather deploy our resources to some other parts of it and do our full start strategy of the 30-odd problems or the 40-odd problems we identified. Make sure that we have covered them all before we start deploying our resources for other aspects and out of greed.
Understood.
We never know if that money we deployed, the opportunity cost of that is higher or not. So at least as long as we have a thesis, we want to follow it. And then as we have completed at least part of the thesis, maybe then we'll look for it.
Understood. Thank you.
And another thing is we have to find out if this is the right way to deploy such funds, or does it make sense for us to, do some other financial instrumentation like an AIF, which is working in tandem with us and do it. We don't know. We have not thought of that question. We have parked it for now. Once we think about it, we'll find out the best method to do it.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take a follow-on from the line of Rudresh Kalyan. Rudresh, go ahead. Rudresh, you need
Rudresh, I think you're on mute.
Okay. Hi, Sandeep. Sorry. Yeah. So I was asking about we raised stake in 3 entities recently, in the Pencil and the Slate, as well as in another one. So what was the strategy behind increasing stake in them?
Yeah.
So to answer your question, Rudresh, for example, in case if you look at Pencil, we have entered into a contract about 3 years back. So 3 years back, we have subscribed for optionally preferential shares and as well as partly convertible equity shares. So over the period of time, as and when the time matures, we need to convert those partly paid equity shares into fully paid. So that keeps on happening every quarter based on the technology that we deploy at Pencil. So that's the reason why where you see Pencil equity going up. And as far as the Slate is concerned, Slate, again, we have, what happened was they went ahead and raised additional capital from existing investors. And just as a part of our share, as a part of anti-dilution protection, we have infused additional about close to 50 lakhs. You are on mute, Sandeep.
Sorry. I think we did it in the right spirit because the entrepreneurs also put in money. So we've been putting money at par with them. We wanted to make sure that we are backing them to the full extent.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Sandeep.
Thank you, Rudresh. We'll take another follow-on from the line of Gaurav Joshi. Gaurav, go ahead. Sorry, 1 second. Gaurav, go ahead now.
Yeah. Sorry. Thanks, Ken. So this is just a follow-up, from what Sandeepan, covered in the question just preceding this, and he also talked about the AIF, probably, at a point.
I said that probably we'll find the right instrument.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Correct. So are we looking, positioning us as investment holding company in the long term? We don't envisage to start up, in something like a product business, move to, just for a diversification perspective, but we are looking ourselves purely as an investment holding company.
Okay, Gaurav, I'll give you a very honest answer. We are not modeling or trying to go into any. We are innovating, improvising as we see opportunities and what we think is the right solution.
Okay.
So I have no fixed plans into that. Only, as I said, we'll do whatever fosters and maximizes our catalyst of innovation and make sure that we are trying to do it with the right balance of investor interest and our shareholder value increase.
Hello? Does it answer?
Yeah, thanks.
Does it answer you?
It did. It does,
Is it any incompleteness feeling I can sense in your voice that you are not fully satisfied?
No, I'm just I'm just seeing you, from the perspective of, it's still evaluation and stage where we are from the strategy perspective. It is moving parts. You're open for,
See, when we started Gaurav, there was no model like ours, right? And we started off, and it has worked.
Yeah.
So now we are seeing that to make this model more sustainable, to do the good work we are doing with more impact, what is it that we need to do? What are our limits? What should we not do? What should we do? It's a constant innovation we are doing among ourselves also all the time. And trust me, I'll be very honest with you. I don't have all the answers. But we know that we have enough bright brains, enough heart, enough experience to figure out the answers as we go along. We'll make mistakes on the way, but we'll correct it also because we'll stick to it.
Yeah. And Gaurav, Sandeepan's response was more in reference to follow-on investment in the portfolio companies where Zalpmoc has invested. So right now, at least for next few years or next 3 to 5 years, we'll continue the existing model. We will not be, as far as the follow-on investment is concerned, like what we did in Ripe Technologies Slate on a case-to-case basis, the board will take.
We have done one exception before also. We have done it in Mihoop. When we knew we are very close to a good product, but we were not able to raise funding very easily. So we did it. These are all one of cases where we'll back our gut and our conviction. And sometimes it'll pay off, sometimes it'll fail.
No, see, what I was looking at, the sense which I was getting, you are also like an angel network. You're also, like a FPI setting up an,
No, we are not an angel network as of now.
Yeah, so I'm just, looking at you from what exactly is your
whatever
thought?
works, whatever works.
Exactly. So you're picking up the best things,
we will pick up. And again, the whole idea was to make sure that the whole philosophy behind starting Zelpmonk, going public so early, was to make sure that the Indian middle class has a say in our startup ecosystem's growth. We will keep to that. Whatever instrumentation is there, even if we form an AIF, we will do probably a rights issue or we'll use new funds, and Zelpmonk will be a participant in the AIF. It will not be just a rich man's game. This much I can assure you.
And Gaurav, the main focus on Zelpmonk is on innovation, on technology to address next 500 million users within India. Now, how do we invest? Where do we invest? How portfolios that we are going to build? It's a sort of a byproduct for us.
Got it. Right. Yeah. Thank you and appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gaurav. I'll take the next question to line of Ravindra Vai. Ravindra, please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, Ravindra, we can hear you.
Mr. Sandeepan, thank you so much. First of all, thank you for giving us an opportunity to invest in startups indirectly. This is the most exciting investment that I have in my portfolio.
Thank you so much for understanding our pangs and our wishes and participating. And we are so grateful that we had such a resounding acceptance in the market when we started. There was a lot of doubt. Will people get it, not get it? But we knew that if we really want to have a strong startup ecosystem, some of us have to raise our hands and go and try the untested. And we are glad we did so, especially because of support of people like you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Sandeepan, I would like to get an update on the pilot project that we are doing with the listed restaurant.
Right.
And when can we see...
You're talking of the EdTech project, right?
No, the listed restaurant project.
Oh, trust me, that has been sort of put onto a kind of a cold storage because COVID happened. And that entire segment is more or less not looking at really doing much other than having their presence on all the marketplaces, to be very frank.
Got you. Thank you. And have you registered a UK arm?
We are in the process of doing it. We are timing it well. There's no point listing it and then, we can't even travel there.
Right.
So we are caught in the logjam, hoping for those things to clear up. I think I saw one question in the chat, which I thought was interesting, and I'll answer in short. Yes, we are planning to recruit people in Europe and UK to do it. We don't want it just as a front office for our Indian operations. We want to create a true MNC, and we will be looking at that. But at the same time, we want to form with those people as fundamentals to make sure that they have skin in the game. We will make some interesting structures to attract the best talent there.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Sandeepan. And thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ravindra. Much appreciated. The next question is a follow-on from the line of Pavan Pagaria. Not a follow-on, first one, sorry, from Pavan. Pavan, go ahead. You need to unmute yourself, please, before you speak.
Hello.
Hi, Pavan.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
The first question is, the last couple of quarters, we've been seeing this loss on account of ESOPs being issued to the employees. So how many more quarters or what is the quantum we're looking at debiting the P&L account to account for the ESOPs?
I think Srini had covered it last time, but anyway, Srini, please go ahead.
So you have another 7 quarters. Basically, this is for 2 years. So we have just started, most of it started from mid of last quarter. So that is the reason why it was not reflecting full quarter ESOP expenses for previous quarter. But yes, this quarter it reflects fully. But at the same time, Pawan, you should understand that we are augmenting, we are onboarding few senior guys. Like today on the opening remarks, I mentioned.
Pawan, this expense will be there, but we will overcome that with better revenues and better margins.
Yeah. So this current expenses, in case if you ask me, it will be there for next 7 quarters.
The next question is, we've been able to project good results on a consolidated basis because of the incremental valuations of our investment made in startups. When can we actually see our own AI and machine learning to be able to give us good and handsome returns?
I think I have answered that partly when I said that in a 3 to 5 year time frame, probably we would see that we will have our own mainstay products and ventures which will be solely owned by Zelp. But one trend that you must realize, and I was trying to point that out, is in some of the key sectors, the kind of stakes we are taking are quite significant. It's not like previously where we are a significant minority holder. I think we are now significant majority holders in many of the ventures. So it's a slow transition. You are already seeing parts of it in play, but it will come into fruition fully probably in 3 to 5 years.
The last question is, we've seen a difference in the valuation between what was there in the presentation from last June to this June. But from March 21 till date, is there been a calculation done, or is it the March valuations we have included in the presentation?
So to answer your query, Pawan, like as we stated in even previous analyst calls as well, what we do is, as far as the valuations are concerned, we relocate it every 6 months. That's as on 31st March and on 30th September. Now, what happens is next revision on the valuation, you will look at in the next quarter.
Understood. So
Pawan, just to tell it, I think I'll qualify that more. Unless there is a funding event, which we have to notify to the exchange anyway, we don't do valuations every time. If there's a funding event, then we do update it. We want to make sure that every transparency is maintained and all those things. We'll not hide positive or negative.
Yeah, but cash flow, discounted cash flow valuation as mandatory and as required is done once in 6 months. That's on 31st March and on 30th September.
Correct.
Great. Just one thing I need to thank you guys, because all the guys want to, or rather would aspire to make investments in startups. But small retailers like ours would not be able to have the bandwidth nor actually have the monies to go and put the monies there. So I think by Zelpmoc, we're going to achieve those aspirations. And I think it's a great opportunity for retailers like us.
I hope that, there is much more done regulatorily and all those things. The simplest thing people can do is have a MF, which is looking at startups. These are things that we need, because finally, where the funding comes from also determines what kind of solutions will be done. There is no reason why a foreign investor would believe in something very rustic, which works only in India, and he would rather bet on something which he has seen work in the country of his choice or a domicile of his choice. So as long as we need solutions which work for India, we have to wait for startups to survive, and then there'll be a lot of interested investors, or we have to change the investor base itself so that they understand the problems that are being tried to solve and believe and put money in it. I think that's the reason for doing Zelpmoc.
Yeah, just to add on to this, I was listening to a seminar where Mohandas Pai was speaking, and he was saying that only the big guys from outside India are making all the money from the startups in India. Indians are not participating. It's high time Indians participated and grew within the country.
Well, let's hope they make money. Firstly, remember that Zelpmoc is not going to focus for those flashy valuation-based startups. We are pretty focused on very rustic startups which have a prospect of EBITDA positivity in the short term. And that's been our focus. So that probably would need a different kind of a Zelpmoc model. Someone else should start it. And I think that's also a lucrative model. Why not make money when the sun is shining? And that, who knows, that also has a lot of success. We understand profits. We understand very hardcore unit economics. Our focus is on those sort of startups. And we're limited, restricted to bottom of the pyramid startups, because that's our focus.
Great. Thanks, Sandeepan, for answering all my questions.
Thank you so much for asking them,
Pawan.
Thank you, Pawan. Next question comes to the line of Sandeepan Das. Sandeepan, go ahead.
Sandeep Das, yeah. Sandeepan Das.
Yeah. Hey,
Hi, Sandeep. Go ahead.
Hi. So my question is particularly on Woobly. So can you give us a brief description about how they are doing in the tier 2-3 cities? And
30% of the value is coming from tier 2-3 cities. Now, if you assume that the per customer spend would be a fraction of the city, I think from a usage number, probably it'll be more 60-40 at least.
Okay. And is it?
On average,
I'm right?
about $10 per hour.
70% is from Tier 1 and 30% Tier 2, right?
Yeah, 70% is from Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities, and 30% is from the rest of
Tier
the
3. Yeah.
And average spend is close to about $10 per an hour.
Okay. And the next question is it like modeled on the company called Shein, which is the Chinese company Shein, or is it like there's a plan to go towards that model, like customer to manufacturer, that kind of a model?
No idea. We are only following whatever the user patterns seem to be looking at from the data analysis, and we are doing it. But I actually will look up that company. I'm not right now knowledgeable of that particular model. I'll look it up.
Oh, okay. Sure. Yeah. That's it from my side. Thanks.
Thank you, Sandeep. Next question is a follow-on from the line of Dhanil Desai. Dhanil, go ahead.
Again, probably slightly basic question, but so Sandeepan, this service business that we have.
Sorry, can you speak a bit slowly? There is some sort of a muffling happening. Not able to hear you distinctly.
Okay, is it better?
Yes.
Okay. So Sandeepan, I want to understand this service business that we are having from all the talks that I've listened and all the calls that I've listened. Our entire focus is on to scale up this startup, portfolio that we have. So, is it fair to think that it is more of a, kind of a cash flow support kind of a business that we are building on the service side, or there's something more to it?
I did explain here, cash flow support, surely. There's a little bit of Robinhood we can do, which we will not avoid doing. But as I was explaining that, see, we had some credence, we had some acceptability, we had a reputation in India, right? Outside India, no one really understands what a Just Dial is or what a money control is, to be very frank. So I don't think we'll get the best entrepreneurs to work with us. Going there, working in some big logos, doing some great work, getting some acceptance, getting some reputation, then going for the startups there probably would make sense. Ideally, there's a lot of innovation that happens in material science, in core sciences, in manufacturing sciences in the advanced countries because they have the money to do it. We don't have it. Probably we'll be in a position tomorrow to amalgamate these sort of startups together and go with a completely new offering to an Africa or an India.
Okay. But is it fair to assume that a significant part of the resources that you will generate and you will raise will go to the startup ecosystem and not to the service?
My most precious, invaluable resources will always focus on the startup and innovation ecosystem. This much I can assure you.
Okay, great. Understood.
Okay. Invaluable is the keyword.
Yeah. Okay.
If anyone else has a question, you may press the raise hand button. I'll take the last question before we close the call. We're at the hour mark right now. We have a follow-on from the line of Vidul Sikka. This is the last question, please. Yeah.
Hello, sir. So this is not pertaining to Zaltmox, but I was just trying to understand, when do we get to meet the management in person? Do we look forward to those kind of events anytime in the future?
Trust me, man, I am the most fed up because I'm usually someone who loves, interacting, meeting people, and this disease has been quite of a bit of a dampener. We have all got our second shots now. Most of my guys are young, so they are still waiting in the wings to get the second shot. Hopefully, let's hope that next quarter meeting or next to next quarter, maybe, we should be able to meet in person.
And so if we are in Bangalore or Kolkata, are we allowed to just drop by at the office and schedule a meeting with you?
Please schedule and come over. I am usually more or less open to it, but we will meet in a open air restaurant and all those things, maintaining all COVID protocol and do it. Office is something we are keeping very secluded because, it's like a critical mass for us. We are making sure that we are following it. Even if we are having meetings, we are making sure that guy is not coming to office for the next 3 days, quarantining at home and then coming to office when he is deemed safe. We're doing all sorts of crazy things. In fact, Srini and we sort of started a kind of a bubble office, which we took a old bungalow of 4 bedrooms and converted the ground floor into an office. And the 3 bedrooms on top are people who are overseas who come, senior people, because we need to interact in person. So they come, they stay there, they work in that bubble. No junior guys allowed because they have a very crazy lifestyle which we can't keep up with, our risks and all. So we have been doing all sorts of pretty things.
Lovely, sir. Keeping fingers crossed for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vidul. That was the last question. At this point, I'd like to hand over the call to Sandeepan for his closing comments. Sandeepan?
Well, we are very happy with some of the... So personally, I mean, Srini has told it, but Srinivas Kollipora joining Zelpmoc is probably one of the big things from my heart and from my intellect. I mean, getting someone of his caliber, experience to even get interested in us, and the kind of depth that person has, the kind of things we get to learn from him is so huge and immense. And getting him on a full-time role in a very critical joint and him willing to take that very enthusiastically, that has been one of the highlights in the last few days. And we are extremely enthusiastic and looking forward to it. Similarly, we are talking to some pretty good people. Hopefully, we will have more good news like that to share in a few things. That is very important for us right now. Getting good people on board, making sure we are ready for the next leap. You know, when you leap, you have to sit down a bit and then get the full force. Last 3 to 4 quarters have been that. Hopefully, now you will see a little bit of acceleration happening. And anyway, this stuck revenue and all is something we'll probably mitigate in the next 2 quarters.
Thank you, Sandeepan.
Srini, please. Yeah. This has been your quarter. You have done some amazing work. Why don't you go ahead and do that part?
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. In case if you have any further queries, please do reach out. We are happy to address the same. That's from our end. Thank you. Over to Diwakar.
And thanks to everyone who appreciates. And we want to be this transparent. We want to be this accessible. And we do believe, and I have said it before, it's your right to ask us questions. As long as they're logical, we will always answer it.
Thank you, Sandeepan. Thank you, Srini, and thanks all the participants on this call. If you have any other queries, you can either reach out to Ravi or I, and we'll be able to fix up a meeting or a call with Sandeepan and Srini later. Thank you, and have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Recording stopped.